Hello, YouTube friends. Welcome to Table Talk. My name is Brett, pastor at the table, and as I mentioned in my last episode, for years I was terrible at praying, but eventually something worked for me. And it's honestly not something I'd ever heard much about in my evangelical wing of the Christian church. So what was it? One word: silence. For a season, I stopped saying words when I prayed, and I began to simply sit in silence. I personally engaged a practice called centering prayer, which at some point I'll do some other episodes on to unpack. It's, pretty straightforward. Basically, you are simply quiet and you focus your mind on that still point within yourself, which I think is really the same thing as just saying you're tuned into the Spirit of God within. And then when you find your mind wandering, and you will, you simply return to God. So that's what I did. And this practice taught me a few things. First, it taught me to focus. What is everyone's complaint about prayer? I can't focus. My mind, it just won't stay in one place. Of course, a form of silent prayer like I just described above, what does it do? It begins to teach you to focus. Now, does that mean that my mind is now like a steel trap and that it never wanders? No, I still have a long way to go, but each day I get just a little bit better. Side note, there is good neuroscience on this that says, yes, indeed, the brain can be trained to focus. And yes, this is a skill that will translate to the rest of your life in positive ways. So that's the first thing, focus. Second, it taught me to relax when I wanted to run. Here's what I mean. To be human is to find ourselves bumping up against uncomfortable experiences, sensations, feelings, and emotions, and when we feel those things, we really, really want to escape them. We don't want to face them, we don't want to acknowledge them, but we want to run from them. This is the restlessness and endless craving that drives each one of us. The brilliant French philosopher and Christian Blaise Pascal, he put it this way. He said, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. That's a really profound insight because, if you think about it, so much of our lives is characterized by this restless avoidance and addiction, right? We don't want to go home to face our marriage, and so what do? We work late or go out drinking or watch a movie, right? We don't want to do work. And so we turn to Facebook. We don't want to face our pain. We can't do that. And so what do? Well, we turn to substances to help us cope, right? We can't deal with our memories, and so we numb them through endless romantic relationships or TV binge watching and so on and so forth. We can't sit quietly in a room alone. So coming back to silent prayer, it has taught me and continues to teach me to simply sit there. It's sort of the opposite of that old phrase, don't just sit there, do something. So I'd say, don't just do something, sit there. See, our problem is that we can't just sit there, but we must sit there. We must learn to face it, to face ourselves. And when it gets boring, and it will, we just sit there. And when we get uncomfortable, we just sit there. And sometimes we have an amazing God experience, but we just sit there. And other times it feels like nothing is happening. This is not working. Brett is a lying liar. But just sit there. See, silent prayer really is the opposite of addiction because we relax and we turn to God instead of run. Third, it laid the groundwork for more classical forms of prayer. See, some of you may be wondering, so wait, is all you do sit in silence? What about praying with words, man? What about the Lord's Prayer, for goodness sake? Well, yes, eventually my season of nothing but silence came to an end, but what I found is that I now had the heartbeat of prayer, which is presence. I was learning to be present to God, and now I could pray the Lord's Prayer with greater focus and presence. Now I could pray for others with greater focus and presence, and in fact, that's my practice to this day. I take time for prayer with words, and then about the same amount of time for a prayer of silent meditation with Christ. So, if you've had trouble learning to pray, to engage this sort of practice, perhaps it's time that you introduced a time of silence. Well, that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel by searching Brett Tilford. Hey, grace and peace.